There is certainly a lot to talk about when it comes to American fiction. American Fiction is a American comedy drama film written and directed by Jefferson. It's based on the 2001 novel Erasure by Percival Everett, and the film depicts a novelist who, tired of his more subtle and nuanced books, decides to write a crazy, stereotypical, quote-unquote, black book after seeing a similar book receive widespread acclaim and success. Unfortunately, this joke spins out of control as the book is published and becomes a major hit, including a movie being made. American Fiction's main piece of satire is the publishing industry. And not only the publishing industry, but art in general. Art, and specifically the way that black art is praised. It's about the commodification of the black experience to white people, how we sell the black experience, which black experiences we choose to sell, and how we make the black experience marketable. Monk's main drive is to attempt to show people that the constant depiction of black Americans as struggling and impoverished and under the heel of white Americans and racism only allows them to be victims. This is in direct response to the character Sandra Golden's book, Weez Lives in the Ghetto, which is a book that heavily, in his opinion, leans into black stereotypes and is a prime example of this type of art. Now, in my opinion, this type of art is necessary, but I feel like American Fiction's stance is when this is the only type of art that is labeled as truly black art and truly raw and powerful depictions of the black experience, it limits the black experience to just being books like Weez Lives in the Ghetto, and only allows the artistic idea of black Americans to exist as impoverished and struggling. I think American Fiction satire is very well aimed, and I agreed with it immensely. I think that the main target of American Fiction is black books that high schoolers read in school. That type of American Fiction would call it pandering type of literature that exists only to confirm the ideas that white Americans have and to make themselves feel in the know rather than actually adding anything new to the discussion. As someone who was very angry with reading these books, American Fiction was extremely satisfying. There are books that aren't as safe for schools to teach and aren't as safe for the media to praise. Often these books are only recognized after the fact. I think the screenplay are very annoyed at the way that black artists are not artists foremost. They are perceived by the media as black artists rather than just plain artists, and that their art has to relate in some way to their race. As the main character Monk says near the beginning of the film, he doesn't believe that race is actually a thing. And so the idea that he would write a book about race in that way is completely against what he believes, and yet the only book that he has that makes any money is a book that deals with race in a very unsubtle and stereotypical way. I think one of the most telling scenes is when Monk is sitting down with several other writers to award the book that he has written a literary award. Of course, the other judges do not know that Monk has written this book. Monk and Golden, to his surprise, both agree that the book is pandering, but the three other authors, all of whom are white, absolutely adore it. One says that it was, quote, like gazing into an open wound, while another one says it is a gutsy piece of art and necessary for the times. What I feel like this movie is trying to say is that not every book or piece of art made by a black person needs to be an open wound or needs to be necessary for the times. Sometimes they can just be art. The most marketable subject of black art is black pain, and while there are hundreds of incredible examples of this topic being addressed, it shouldn't be the only topic. And American Fiction addresses this directly with its side story. I was very confused why there was a secondary story in American Fiction. The elements of satire were much more entertaining than going back and visiting Monk's home life, his relationships with his family, and his aging mother. But then I realized, not only does the side story help show who Monk is, it also illustrates that this is a compelling story about a black family that does not relate to race. It's showing that these are the type of stories that are sidelined in favor of stories exploiting and relitigating black pain. The story of Monk's family is filled with pain and is filled with conflict, but that conflict is not stemming from any type of black stereotype or racism. It's stemming from pain that any human being can experience, and thus it eliminates race from the equation and allows people to see black people not as black, but as ordinary people, completely removed from the race that Monk himself doesn't believe is real. For me, that's where I really began to understand this movie. It doesn't want to eliminate books about black pain. It simply wants to give them an equal place on the shelf. Because right now, the shelf about and by black people is overflowing with books about black pain. And as one scene illustrates, even books not about black pain are shoved onto African American literature because they are written by black people, not because their subject matter has anything to do with the black experience. One of the best things, in my opinion, about American Fiction is that it is able to criticize its own message. One of the most important pieces about the film, in my opinion, is that Monk never fully reads Golden's novel. He only sees excerpts, and from that alone makes a judgment about the quality of the book he reads. And while her book does sound not that great, it's still not a fair judgment. Also, the fact that if Golden was a white author, I think we wouldn't end up in this situation. Her book would be ridiculed for the exact same reasons that Monk ridicules it, and the situation would be over. But the film raises a following question. Because Golden is black, is she allowed to tell this story? And the same question is raised against Monk when Monk begins to make money off of his stereotypically black book. If black people are the ones writing this and are the ones getting successful off of it, is that a problem? This is a very complicated question, and while the film and me seem to agree that this is a problem, there is still a lot of conversation to be had about this issue. I personally think that, as I said, it is a problem because it shapes the way that white people and, as the film shows, black people see black people. There's also a question that I had within the film, which is, do the white people, the white publishers, the white critics, the white authors praising Monk's book actually think it's good? Because Monk has a conversation with Golden where she says this is the type of book that they would call necessary but wouldn't call well written. That raised a very important question to me, is just the fact that it is written by a black person about these things make it worthy of critical acclaim in white people's eyes? Does the fact that it's a black book about black issues make it raw, make it powerful, because I think, as both Monk and Golden agree, it doesn't. A book still needs to be good in order to be good. American fiction raises a lot of questions that could be debated for hours, and unfortunately, I don't have anyone to debate with. It's just me. So I'm going to leave the themes and messages of this movie aside and talk about the movie as a movie. In terms of a comedy drama, this movie struggles. It doesn't 100% decide whether it's a comedy or a drama. The elements of satire are very clearly comedy and very well put together comedy, but Monk's home life is decidedly a drama. And while I already said that Monk's home life does add a necessary layer to the film, it does make it drag on a little bit. It's definitely stretched the runtime in a few noticeable places, and while I wouldn't take it out, it still is a flaw that this movie has to sit with. All the performances are very solid, but none of them really stand out that much. I really wish that Jeffrey Wright got to give it a little bit more. His character's not very animated, and given some of the more ridiculous situations he got into, I wish that he was given, or he decided, to be a little bit more animated in some of the crazier scenes. The cinematography, music, and editing are all serviceable. Nothing too extraordinary or too creative done with it, but it does fit the tone and the story well. The screenplay is biting and has some great realistic dialogue, but I do feel like it deserved one more run through with a wittier pen. I think there are a lot of opportunities for some great fast-paced dialogue that fortunately didn't find its way into the script, which could have led to a lot more verbal comedy rather than just situational comedy. Despite these flaws, American fiction does get away with a lot because of the strength of its satire. It's not a high-concept film, but the initial idea of it is able to hold your attention and is able to create an engaging piece of art. Personally, this film was extremely satisfying. As someone who has been a fan of books like Beloved and Kindred by Octavia Butler, but had to settle for The Hate U Give in school, this movie almost seems like a movie made for me to scratch a very specific itch and to make me throw up my arms in the theater and say, finally, someone's been saying what I've been saying. As far as that goes, this movie was a very satisfying film, and while I don't necessarily think I'm going to rewatch it anytime soon, it's a film that is definitely going to create some interesting, in-depth, and possibly even heated conversations if you bring it up with a friend. I can't wait to talk with more people who have seen this movie, because I think it offers a lot of questions while also not necessarily putting down anyone that disagrees with it. It is a serviceably well-made movie with good acting, a good screenplay, and good technical elements. In my opinion, the only piece of it that really sticks out is the piece of satire that it is aiming at, which is something that hasn't, in my opinion, been talked about enough.